Christian Lund. We're still here at Christian Drake in Wilbraham. Now, earlier we talked about vintage necklaces versus costume jewelry. Now, this is a pocket watch here. Well, they both are, but one is vintage and one is costume.
Right, exactly. So this is interesting because antique and vintage is in, obviously, but it's expensive. So a cheaper way to do it is actually to remake these. There's only a finite amount of vintage out there, so they make new ones made to look old. And the neat thing about that is they're not a fortune. They're very reasonable. But you can have that same look, vintage versus the real antique expensive kind.
So point to the vintage.
Okay, so this is a vintage piece right here. The cover closes on this one.
But this one's costume.
This is costume jewelry, so it's a lady's pendant watch worn on a necklace versus antique right here. You can see the gold gilding and all the scroll work and all that fine detail that went into the piece.
Beautiful. So that's one way you can save money and look trendy and still kind of have that vintage old look.
Yes.
Now let's talk about earrings. Now show me here what we've got.
Okay, so we've got we've got new versus vintage right here. These right here are newer cut crystal. They're still not exactly cheap, but it's good statement jewelry meant to replicate the old. And they made this back in the 20s through the 50s, and now they still make them today. Even though these look old, they're not.
Yes, but these here are real vintage. Tell us what these earrings are.
Okay, so somebody brought these things in. These are great because they're very rare. These are real emeralds set in old German silver with the screw back posts. So these are, there's not too many of these out here, but somebody brought those in. I was pretty excited to have them because I only see a handful of them every year.
Yeah, you must think it's really cool when you get something that's rare that you don't see all the time.
It makes my heart go, gets me out of bed in the morning.
That's why you do, Christian. All right, let's talk about these bracelets. This chunky bracelet, I'm gonna guess this is costume, less than $10, but really a statement piece. This bracelet here, vintage.
Vintage, so on the vintage piece, we have vintage rhinestones. Rhinestones have always been in style. They're still in style. They're used on handbags, necklaces, earrings,
Will they
you
ever
name
go
it.
out of style?
I don't think so, because they look like diamonds.
Yeah.
And that's what they were meant to do back in the 20s with the ladies on stage, to replicate diamonds. They look great, and it's, for 25 bucks. I think that's a decent deal.
It is, and especially when you get dressed up, there's nothing that makes you feel more beautiful than, some glitz and glam.
Diamonds are forever.
Diamonds are forever.
Or rhinestones.
Girl's best friend. So vintage costumes, so we've talked about that. There's also these kind of trendy new things that are hot right now, and these are interesting because they're bracelets, right? They also double as hair ties.
These are great because these you can replicate. They're both a vintage look, even though they're new, but you can use them, to hold your hair back if you're working out or whatever, and still look, in style. It's pretty cool. A friend made these. A friend of the family made these.
Yeah,
pretty
so
neat.
there's something that is kind of based on a vintage look, but
Yeah.
they're bringing it back, and you can get them for really not a lot of money at all.
Right.
All right, we've talked about jewelry, Christian. Coming up, we're going to talk about handbags, what's trendy and what is affordable in this day and age. Stay tuned.